Just a few days earlier, Alex had been celebrating the biggest victory of her career in Washington. She left the court as a champion, reached a new career-high ranking, and suddenly found herself at the center of one of the biggest stories in world tennis. But as incredible as that week had been, nobody expected what would happen next. The moment she arrived in Toronto, it became obvious that the excitement surrounding her wasn't slowing down. If anything, it was growing even faster. Before Alex had even played a single point at the Canadian Open, fans were already creating history. Her opening night match became one of the hottest tickets in town, with seats disappearing at a pace that surprised tournament organizers. Long before the first serve, the atmosphere felt more like the later rounds of a Grand Slam than the opening days of a WTA 1000 event. For many people, this wasn't simply another tournament. It was their first chance to see one of tennis' newest stars in person. What made the situation even more remarkable was the comparison being made across the tennis world. Reports noted that a weekday opening night session in Toronto had rarely attracted this level of demand over the past 2 decades. According to those reports, Serena Williams was the only player previously associated with a similar sellout for an opening Wednesday night session. Suddenly, Alex's name was being mentioned in the same conversation, not because anyone was comparing careers, but because of the extraordinary excitement she was generating before even stepping onto the court. That alone showed just how quickly her popularity had exploded. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Alex arrived in Canada carrying all the momentum from her unforgettable run in Washington. She had defeated some of the biggest names in women's tennis, climbed into the world's top 20 for the first time, and captured a title that transformed her from an exciting prospect into one of the sport's biggest attractions. Fans weren't showing up simply because she was winning matches. They wanted to witness the beginning of what felt like a very special journey. Toronto was also the perfect stage for that story. The city is home to one of the largest Filipino communities in Canada, and supporters had been counting down the days until Alex's arrival. Families organized road trips from neighboring cities. Some drove for hours just to attend one evening session. Others rearranged work schedules or booked accommodations to make sure they wouldn't miss the opportunity. Social media filled with messages from fans proudly sharing their tickets, planning meetups, and preparing Philippine flags that would soon cover sections of the stadium. It wasn't just anticipation. It felt like a celebration. Many supporters described Alex as more than a rising tennis player. To them, she represented years of waiting for someone who could inspire an entire generation. For young Filipino athletes growing up in Canada, seeing one of their own competing on one of the biggest stages in tennis carried enormous meaning. Her success made the dream feel closer, more realistic, and far more personal. That emotional connection helped explain why interest in her matches had reached such extraordinary levels. Even fellow professionals had begun noticing the impact Alex was making. Coco Gauff had spoken about how powerful representation can be, explaining that athletes like Alex help connect entire communities to a sport that previously felt distant. She also described Alex as someone who is incredibly easy to support, not only because of her talent, but because of the way she carries herself both on and off the court. Those comments reflected what many fans had already been feeling throughout her breakthrough season. As opening night approached, excitement continued to build. Tournament organizers watched ticket demand rise far beyond expectations, while media outlets highlighted the remarkable enthusiasm surrounding Alex's debut. For an early round weekday session, the atmosphere promised to be anything but ordinary. Usually, those opening days are quieter, with fans waiting until the later rounds before filling every seat. This time, everything felt different. Thousands of spectators were coming specifically to watch Alex play, turning what is normally a routine first-round match into one of the tournament's headline attractions. Despite all the attention, Alex remained focused on the tennis itself. After winning the DC Open, she spoke about how every match had taught her something new and how her confidence had continued to grow throughout the week. Rather than feeling exhausted by the whirlwind of travel and celebration, she believed she was arriving in Toronto as a better player than when she had started the previous tournament. That confidence wasn't based on hype. It was built through victories over some of the strongest competitors on tour. Every challenge she had overcome in Washington prepared her for what awaited in Canada. Yet perhaps the most fascinating part of Alex's story wasn't the ranking, the trophy, or even the sold-out crowd. It was how naturally she connected with people. Whether speaking with reporters, thanking supporters, or interacting with young fans, she displayed the same humility that first captured the public's attention. Success hadn't created distance between Alex and her supporters. If anything, it had brought them even closer together. That connection was becoming one of her greatest strengths, giving every tournament the feeling of a home event no matter where in the world she competed. By the time opening night finally arrived, the spotlight wasn't only on the match itself. It was on the remarkable phenomenon unfolding around one of tennis' brightest new stars. The crowd wanted to witness more than another victory. They wanted to be part of a story that seemed to be getting bigger with every passing week. Washington had introduced Alex to a global audience. Toronto was ready to show that her rise wasn't a one-week sensation, but the beginning of something much larger. And if the scenes surrounding her arrival were any indication, the next chapter of her journey could prove even more unforgettable than the last. Something extraordinary was unfolding in Toronto, and it had nothing to do with the draw or the rankings. Days before Alex even walked onto the court, the tournament was already making headlines because of her. Early round matches at a WTA 1000 event are usually relaxed affairs. With the tournament spread across nearly 2 weeks, weekday sessions often attract smaller crowds as many fans wait for the later rounds. Add the summer heat and an outdoor stadium, and opening nights are rarely packed. That's what made this moment so remarkable. Long before the first ball was struck, every seat for Alex's Wednesday night session had disappeared. It wasn't the final. It wasn't a championship match. It wasn't even the second week of the tournament. Yet the excitement surrounding her arrival had created one of the most talked-about ticket stories of the season. Reports from tennis media suggested that an opening Wednesday night session reaching a sellout had become an incredibly rare event over the past 2 decades, with Serena Williams often cited as the only previous player to generate similar demand. Whether fans were drawn by curiosity, history, or the chance to witness tennis' newest breakout star, one thing was obvious. Alex had become one of the biggest attractions in the sport almost overnight. But ticket sales alone didn't explain what was happening. The real story could be found in the people filling those seats. Toronto is home to one of the largest Filipino communities anywhere outside the Philippines, and for many of those families, Alex represented something far greater than another professional athlete. They had followed her journey from childhood, celebrated every milestone, and watched her breakthrough with enormous pride. When it became official that she would compete in Canada, supporters immediately began making plans. Some requested time off work. Others organized long road trips with family and friends. Many proudly prepared their Philippine flags, determined to transform the stadium into an atmosphere Alex would never forget. Across social media, excitement continued to build. Fans shared countdowns, posted photos of their tickets, and talked about finally having the opportunity to watch someone they had supported for years. Many described Alex as a source of inspiration not only because of her victories, but because of the humility she displayed through every stage of her career. Again and again, supporters pointed to the same qualities: her kindness, her gratitude, the respect she showed to opponents, the way she never forgot where she came from. Those traits made people feel connected to her in a way that went far beyond tennis. Her popularity had also reached a new level because of everything she accomplished just days earlier. Winning the DC Open completely changed the conversation surrounding her career. She had defeated some of the strongest players in women's tennis, climbed to a career-high ranking, and captured a title that instantly placed her among the sport's brightest young stars. She wasn't arriving in Toronto as a promising prospect anymore. She was arriving as a champion, carrying momentum and confidence that every opponent would have to respect. Fellow players had noticed the impact as well. Coco Gauff spoke about how important Alex's rise could be for the future of tennis, explaining that representation helps entire communities feel connected to a sport in new ways. She also described Alex as someone who is naturally easy to cheer for, a player whose personality shines just as brightly as her game. Those comments reflected what fans around the world had already begun to recognize. Alex wasn't simply collecting victories. She was helping introduce tennis to people who had never before felt represented on its biggest stages. What made her journey even more powerful was the way she consistently redirected praise away from herself. Whenever reporters asked about the incredible support she received, Alex preferred to talk about the Filipino community instead. She often explained that the story wasn't only about one player succeeding. It was about an entire community finally seeing itself represented at the highest level of the sport. That perspective resonated deeply with supporters because it reminded everyone that her achievements belonged to something much larger than individual success. Even with all the headlines, the sold-out stadium, and the growing international attention, Alex's mindset never appeared to change. She remained focused on improving, staying grounded, and honoring the people who had believed in her from the very beginning. She understood that every child watching from the stands or from home might see possibilities they had never imagined before. Every victory opened another door. Every tournament inspired another dream. As match day approached, anticipation reached an entirely different level. Thousands of fans prepared to create an atmosphere unlike any other seen during the opening week of the tournament. Philippine flags were ready. Chants were already being planned. For one evening, the stadium wouldn't simply feel like a stop on the WTA Tour. It would feel like a home crowd welcoming one of its own. Alex was stepping into an arena filled with people who had followed every step of her remarkable journey, and they were ready to cheer as loudly as they possibly could. Washington had introduced the world to a new champion. Toronto was preparing to show just how powerful that connection between Alex and her supporters had already become. And if the scenes before the opening match were any indication, this remarkable story was still only beginning. Alex has always had a simple way of ending her messages to the people who support her. She smiles, looks toward the crowd, and says, "Salamat," a heartfelt thank you that has become closely associated with her journey. Those few words carry a meaning far beyond gratitude. For Filipinos living around the world, they are a reminder that no matter how far success takes her, Alex never forgets where she came from. That connection is one of the biggest reasons her story continues to resonate. To so many supporters, she isn't simply winning tennis matches. She represents possibility. She represents a young athlete from a country that has rarely been mentioned among tennis powerhouses, proving that talent, determination, and belief can overcome expectations. Every victory feels personal because millions of people see part of themselves in her journey. By the time she arrived in Toronto, that emotional connection had reached another level. Thousands of supporters were preparing to welcome her, as if she were returning home. For Alex, the responsibility wasn't something that created pressure. It created purpose. She understood exactly what it meant for young fans to finally see someone who looked like them competing with and defeating the very best in the world. She wanted to reward that belief every time she stepped onto the court. But behind all the excitement was an enormous challenge that few people fully appreciated. Alex wasn't arriving in Canada after a week of rest and preparation. She was coming directly from the most demanding stretch of tennis she had ever played. Her championship run in Washington had tested her physically, mentally, and emotionally. She battled through difficult opponents, long matches, and unexpected delays before finally lifting the biggest trophy of her career. Most players would have welcomed a chance to recover after such an exhausting week. Alex didn't have that luxury. The celebration ended almost as quickly as it began. Within hours, her attention shifted to the National Bank Open, one of the biggest tournaments outside the Grand Slam events. The turnaround was incredibly short. There was barely enough time to travel, recover, and adjust before another major challenge was waiting. It was the kind of schedule that pushes even experienced champions to their limits. Despite the circumstances, Alex refused to complain. Instead, she focused on the confidence she had gained in Washington. She explained that every match had helped her improve, teaching her something new about both her game and herself. Rather than feeling worn down, she believed she had finished the tournament playing her best tennis. That confidence would be essential because the road ahead looked anything but easy. The draw in Toronto was filled with elite players, Grand Slam champions, and dangerous opponents capable of ending anyone's tournament in a single afternoon. Yet after what Alex had accomplished just days earlier, nobody could confidently say she didn't belong among them. She had already shown that rankings and reputations meant very little once the first ball was in play. Before she could even think about another deep run, however, there was one obstacle standing directly in front of her. Her opening opponent carried memories Alex had no interest in reliving. Earlier in the season, they had met in Melbourne, where Alex looked in complete control after a dominant opening set. Everything seemed to be going perfectly until the momentum suddenly shifted. Her opponent fought back, took control of the match, and handed Alex a painful defeat that lingered long after the tournament ended. It was one of those losses every athlete remembers because it teaches lessons that victories often cannot. 7 months later, fate had created the perfect opportunity for redemption. Once again, Alex would face Alicia Parks. But this wasn't the same player who had walked off the court disappointed in Melbourne. Since that day, Alex had grown in every area of her game. She had gained confidence against the world's best, collected career-defining victories, and learned how to stay composed when momentum shifted against her. The experience she had built over the previous months transformed her into a far more complete competitor. Parks, meanwhile, would not be facing the young player she remembered. She would be facing a champion carrying the confidence of someone who had just conquered one of the toughest fields on the